This is the You, Me, and BTC podcast.
Cryptocurrency decrypted.
Welcome to episode 76. This week we have a special guest, Mr. Anthem Hayek Blanchard, the CEO of Anthem Vault. The company just launched HayekGold, which is a crypto token backed by physical gold bullion. One Hayek will always be worth 1 gram of gold. Today, Mr. Blanchard will explain why he created HayekGold and how it should be useful to many people. We'll also spend some time discussing the trust that must exist when a digital token is pegged to a physical asset. Stay tuned for all that and tons more. Your hosts are Tim Baker and myself, Daniel Brown. Here we go. Okay, hey everybody, welcome back to the show. This is the You, Me, and BTC podcast. Glad to have you for another exciting episode. I am Daniel Brown, and I'm here with
Tim Baker.
We have a really special guest today. I'm really pleased to welcome Mr. Anthem Blanchard, the CEO of Anthem Vault. Mr. Blanchard, thanks a lot for joining us today.
It's great to be with you.
I guess it's also worth plugging in your middle name, too. His name is Anthem Hayek Blanchard.
Yeah, definitely the most interesting name we've had on the show.
Yeah, I gotta love those Austrians. So, well, we're glad to have him. And like I said, at least I think I said, he's the CEO of Anthem Vault, which is, well, I mean, I'll let him describe it more, but it's basically a vault where you can buy gold and silver and they store it for you. And I'll let him start with that then, before we get into all this stuff about HayekGold, which is a gold-backed cryptocurrency. So I'm looking forward to talking about that. But I guess I'll let him get started by just telling us what Anthem Vault is and why you're running it. What's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So Anthem Vault is a convenient, easy way for people to buy, sell, and store physical gold and silver bullion. So our aim is really to make metals easy, secure, and affordable for the world. You know, my family came from a pretty rich tradition in the gold industry, and my dad really lobbied hard after the gold window closed, where the dollar wasn't redeemable for gold any longer by central banks in 1971, and lobbied really, fearlessly, and really, I think his movement that he spearheaded really was the reason that gold became accessible to hundreds of millions of people in the U.S. as citizens, because before 1975, U.S. citizens from 1933 through 74 couldn't actually own legally physical gold bullion, like a bar of gold. It's kind of incredible.
Right.
So yeah, it's we're basically just continuing that legacy forward, basically. And the awesome thing about Bitcoin and crypto is that it provides us with this incredible, awesome, decentralized network that is universal. So, and open. So, those are things that, we're really, really excited about developing really hard into. We're really, development is, for sure our strong suit. And, it's been really exciting to see the team work, even, kind of in this early stages. And now that we're really picking up some steam and the industry is really picking up some steam, it's the possibilities, things that we've envisioned and we've planned and scoped for, now being able to actually realize them is just incredibly exciting. So it's an awesome time right now. It's the most fun I've ever had as an entrepreneur in my, 20 some odd years, I guess you could say, of entrepreneurship. This was 22 probably, unofficially. So, anyway, so it's exciting. So it's good times. So it's great to see the space, really, really prosper.
What kind of background do you have, Anthem? Like as far as
personally, So going back, education-wise, BBA, finance, accounting, so that was, early educational start for what that's worth, and really kind of getting into this for 6 years. And that was back when they had the digital gold payment feature. So when I joined, the landscape at that time was a scary landscape looking back on it, because it was one filled with, Doug Jackson. He was definitely a sociopath, because he, went masquerading around like there was no such thing as the U.S. Patriot Act, and pretending he was in some kind of offshore Nevis jurisdiction, and they were all based in Florida. You had bullion, Jim Fayette. He was a psychopath, that guy. So he killed his wife and killed himself. They were based in LA, and they also were stealing from their clients too. That's not good. Bernard von Nothaus, Liberty Dollar, sociopath again. So he really masqueraded around as a dollar. He consulted with preeminent constitutional scholar Edwin Vieira on the subject, and just completely thumbed his nose at him. So unfortunately, unfortunately, I see very similar, eerily similar patterns happening in the crypto industry in general. I mean, I'd go as far as to say probably 85 to 90% of the businesses that I encounter out there, I don't have much faith in. I think, are led by questionable people at best. And I guess I'll leave it at that. But, I think it really drives to, I think, the point though, that, it really is important to keep open systems, because I think, if I look at the parallel in all of these different companies, basically it was, too much central control, and it's like absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's like, a bad, Lord of the Rings paraphrasing or something, and so it becomes very difficult. And that's why, really with what we're doing with Anthem Vault and the Hayek is, I think, so important, the open approach, because we're really hoping to work with, dozens of companies over time to develop a network of custodians in all kinds of jurisdictions, and really then, have some, diversification in terms of different jurisdictions and also operators. So, in case, we have someone that comes in as CEO, of course it won't be me, but, but, we're really heavy in transparency and authentication and verification, and, really developing hard in those areas, and, with largely a lot with, crypto, Internet of Things, those are big areas for us, really pushing the envelope. There's so much that you can do. So that's, we're just excited to really start on harnessing some of the possibilities with crypto.
Yeah, no, we're glad to see all that. Obviously, everybody loves innovation, but that is kind of where we were hoping to go with this, is into the crypto space and ask you about HayekGold. So I guess I'll let you tell us about that now, because I've read quite a bit about it and I've written a little bit about it, and it seems really interesting, but I think we have several questions just to learn about it and learn how it works. So yeah, can you just start there? Tell us what that is and why you made that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for the writings. I appreciate the interest. Even, critiques, it's always everything. We appreciate the focus. So, it's the Hayek is spendable gold that's powered by Bitcoin. So Cynthia, who's my wife and co-founder and chief of staff and board of director, likes to say, and I really love this, is that it's like, Bitcoin and gold have been dating for a while. And, now with the HayekGold, they got married, and now they're like have kids, so it's, that's kind of how we think of it. And it's really, it's really apropos. So, basically we're taking the world's most trusted store of value, basically, through, most of history, gold and silver. And, then modern times, it's the only asset that all central banks hold, and billions of people already hold little bits of it and already trust it as a store of value. And then, coupling it with the world's most innovative, medium of exchange, method of exchange, and ultimately, ledger of trust. And so any counterparty enabled wallet, a counter wallet is the one that we default to right now from anthemvault.com, through your account. But, let's say Armory or, any other of the list of, counterparty enabled wallets, you can basically hold. So you can think of the Hayek as the vehicle, and you can think of Bitcoin as the fuel, because it'll basically take, we're playing around basically and optimizing and doing all kinds of things to speed up confirmations or things like that. But, it looks like, adding a little bit more Bitcoin into the equation, probably it's going to land somewhere between 3 to 10 cents worth of Satoshi at current BTC US dollar prices, roughly, to make a transaction. But, just as the case with, all crypto, the beautiful thing is that it's open. So, there's all these choices for any kind of wallet, again, that basically is counterparty compatible, which, ties directly into the Bitcoin blockchain, as you all know. So we're really super, super excited about it. It's, we really think that it's the strongest of all the players currently right now, and we're excited to tie our name to it. So,
yeah, no, I'm excited. I think it's a cool idea because, like you said, Bitcoin and gold are both great things, and it's awesome to see them combined. But the first question I have to ask is basically just about the whole trust issue, because you mentioned earlier how, there were people who kind of went crazy and took people's money, and how that happens all the time in the crypto space. It's kind of a joke how an exchange goes down every month and stuff. So, and I remember actually once I was at a Bitcoin conference, and these guys came up to me and put a mic on me, and I don't know who they were or where they were from. I didn't really ask, but they asked me, I think it was something like, well, what do you think of these new ideas about gold-backed or any kind of physically backed cryptocurrency? And my first thought was just that I like the idea. It sounds awesome, but it's just the trust issue. Once you connect it to the physical world, you have to trust someone. So I guess that's all I would want to know is just I guess there's two aspects. Can you tell us about your reputation and your history, and then also physically and technically, what kind of measures do you have in place for security and auditing and stuff like that? Absolutely.
So in terms of the history, I already prefaced a little bit the family history. Father pushed for the movement for the relegalization of gold. His name was James Ulysses Blanchard III, and he and my mother ended up founding a company. It was called James U. Blanchard and Company at the time. Ended up becoming the largest coin company in the world, and they sold that company about 1989. So, that was obviously, he's known around the world. He was a Cato Institute director for 15 years until he died in 1999 through 1984. It's actually a really neat interview for your listeners that want to Google. If they Google Cato Hayek Blanchard or Jim Blanchard, it'll pop up the interview that my dad gave to Frederick August Hayek when he was teaching at the University of Freiburg in Germany. And the eerie thing about it, and I don't remember reading this article before we did the name, but he actually called, he suggests to call it, Hayek suggests calling basically kind of what we're doing a solid. And my dad proposes that the unit be called a Hayek. Right. So that's kind of a really cool interview. So, that's some of the background from the family history. And my dad went on to found another coin company, Jefferson Coin and Bullion, that he sold. Actually, the family sold after he passed away. And I personally, again, worked in digital gold currency space for 6 years. I basically led strategy and development of gold money from 2002 to 2008. So that was a tremendous experience. Was their board director for over 4 years. Sat in all the board meetings for 6 years. So it was a great experience. It was a really great learning experience. I worked with a great team over there. With the value in the system went from 1 million to 368 million when I left operationally. So Dang. We, increased in, about over 300x. When I got to gold money, E-gold and E-bullion together, I think had eclipsed about 100 billion in 100 million, billion. I wish 100 million in the vault, and gold money had about 1 million. And, within about 2 years, I think it was around October, November of 2004, we had eclipsed all of the competitors eGold. So that was, you know, a lot of fun, just an incredible learning experience for me right out of college.
Yeah.
When all of my classmates all my accounting classmates went to Big Four auditing firms, and I would say 60% roughly of my classmates went to work in an investment bank. So I rejected both paths. I had the worst salary. I got paid actually 200 grams of gold my first year out of college. So in New York, but it was an awesome experience. Yeah, it was a great experience, and it really, you know, taught me a lot about how the industry works, about what people like. You know, I started as a client service rep, and, you know, I still do client service rep, you know, here and there. So like I've responded to someone on social media. I'll do that all the time. You know, we have a great team that will do most of the email messaging calls at this point, but, you know, it's something near and dear to my heart. So, you know, it's really understanding what people want, and then, you know, trying to build and develop products and services that they're going to like and that they're going to enjoy and they're going to want to use and tell other people about. So, and structuring things in the right way where, you know, someone feels that they're getting equitable value, and making sure that they are through development, ultimately, and innovation. So, you know, our mantra really with Anthem Vault is to make value more valuable at Anthem Vault than anywhere else in the world through innovation. So basically through making the metal more useful, ultimately, or value more useful and more secure, that, you know, we can ultimately have more value. Our metal and value can be more valuable. Our clients' value can be more valuable at Anthem Vault than anywhere else. So, and I think being in the U.S. really helps too. You know, we're very, very cognizant and have a great, deep understanding for the Patriot Act and the regulations that surround it, including all of the state regs. So that's something that's incredibly important. I mean, it's not something that I'm necessarily super happy about or sad about. It's just a reality of life. You know, we are very, very vigilant about, you know, understanding the guidelines and guidance. And I've actually been really pleased at the U.S. Treasury and FinCEN's real designation and really treating, you know, crypto as it should be, which is, you know, decentralized virtual currency, and, you know, really recognizing it is really a peer-to-peer transaction just done digitally. So, you know, as easy as it is to rail on government, it's nice to see actually an occasion where, as, you know, difficult as it is to decipher, because there really are no rules of the road, specific rules of the road per se, with AML procedures. But, you know, at the same time, you know, we take that to err on the side of conservatism and, you know, and just work within the landscape, basically, because, you know, that's really where I think it really helps that, you know, I come from the background of precious metal. I'm used to working with banks in the capacity of fractional gold ownership system with gold money, you know, and now with Anthem Vault. So it definitely puts our major suppliers and partners and relationship partners at ease. And a lot of that's because we have best practices. You know, we're audited annually. You know, all the metal is held, you know, world class, the same, you know, vaults as, you know, Federal Reserve and Bureau of Engraving and major Fed member banks. So, you know, I'm from New Orleans originally, and I wasn't there for Katrina, but, you know, I know that, you know, the vaults, you know, they were protected when there was, you know, looting and, you know, flooding and, you know, mass destruction there. And, you know, that's the idea. And that's the reason why you don't want to have most of your eggs, in my opinion, in your house. I mean, it's good to have some close around your house, but, you know, you really don't want stuff close to you if things get really bad. And, you know, usually you want things to be pretty liquid, right? Because you want to be able to, you know, get into another position, right? Or, you know, you might need to use some of your savings, your store of value to purchase an expense, or maybe to buy some investment or, you know, another asset or whatever it might be. So, you know, you want to be able to have it be accessible and easily spendable, ultimately, into something else. So that's where I think, the advantages start really coming into play when you can turn the metal digital. So, it becomes digitally fungible, right? Where you can spend it and pay, pay it or lend it easy. It starts opening up lots of possibilities because it can basically operate within the financial services construct.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons we like Bitcoin is just because it's digital, so you can move it really easily in any amount across borders and everything. So it's great to see that with gold too. And I like your point about diversification, because we tell people all the time, keep some Bitcoin on your phone, keep some on your computer, some on paper. If you want to use something like Coinbase Vault, I think is what they call it, it's a third party, but if you think they're safer than your own paper wallet, that could be worth trying too. I still want to get some on a brain wallet just so that if the government ever wants to get it from me, they got to torture me. I don't know how long I'll last, but I just want to try that.
Dan, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I wouldn't last very long, but anyway, I do.
It's just not worth it.
Exactly.
It's not worth it to give up your time.
Yeah, for all like 0.01 of a Bitcoin you're gonna put on there.
Yeah, my life savings.
Yeah, well,
I would not trust a brain wallet for myself.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think like Hayek, said, really, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So, you have to beware of ideologues of all colors. So, we have to live in the reality that we live in, but, at the same time, aim for greater aspirations, I think, within that construct, otherwise it's just, you see what happens to the sociopaths out there that try and think otherwise, so unfortunately it's not pretty.
Are you saying that yours is different than, say, like the Liberty Dollar because you have a better understanding, or that you acknowledge that you have to play by the rules set up instead of trying to just kind of do your own thing while still being
I think open? Both. I mean, I think history shows both. I mean, gold money got all the way up to $2 billion in value at its height, really maintaining the same strategy, even after I left, just, tweaking it here and there. But, I think that, and having respect, for the landscape, I think is a big deal. And I think, but more than anything, really, because Anthem Vault would be just as prone. I mean, who knows, I mean, I can't guarantee whoever would be in here after me, but I think the key is having it be open. Competition forces compliance and more transparency, because the companies that will be the most transparent will win, because there's such a distrust, right? I mean, that's like the whole impetus behind the Bitcoin movement, right? I mean, it's immutable. I mean, it's, something that can't be mutilated in any way, right? It's not like a centralized database that, you can change entries or, play games or delete things. That's part of the power of it. So arguably the biggest part of the power of it. So, I mean, you have to play within the open platform construct, in my opinion. I mean, I know that others will, say, well, look at the Facebooks of the world, or, even like the Skypes of the world, right? And Microsoft, and, it's saying, okay, well, if you can build a big enough playground, then, why not just have a closed, platform, or walled garden approach? And I guess, maybe that philosophy will win out, but I just think that there are just so many possibilities when you deal in open platform landscape. I mean, it's the way that we've always, been constructed, really with open source, open platform in mind. Someone has to start the fire and build the first, iteration basically, or kind of put it out there. And that's really what we're doing with the Hayek and, putting it out there. I mean, we want to be the best practices in the industry, the model that people point to, but, just like there's hundreds of thousands of different financial services companies out there of all different flavors, I think there's going to, you're already seeing it, right, in the crypto space. I mean, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of, new fintech, financial services companies that, are going to be filling in the void for this hierarchical models that are in finance that are eroding quickly because there's just so much weight on the traditional financial system, and the more and more velocity that goes through it, the more weight there is. So, I think it's no secret to some of the most powerful people, if not the most powerful people in the world, that Bitcoin's here to stay, and that not only is it here to stay, but it's necessary. It's vital, because at the end of the day, it's not really in anyone's best interest to have mass social unrest. It just isn't. So, that's what I'm excited about. I think that us being in the U.S. is the perfect place for us to start. I think that despite all of its shortcomings, that, all in all, that people tend to, on the whole, respect one another more, at least in their differences here in the U.S. than anywhere else. And, I appreciate that about it. I think obviously there's a lot of disturbing trends that have been going on for a long time now, decades and decades. And, it's not pretty, but at the same time, you can't really run from it because the world is global. It really is. So information speeds, it travels literally speeds of light. So you really have to, I think, come to grasp with the reality that it is what it is, deal with whatever cognitive dissonance you have to deal with personally. And then, figure out a way to deal with it by, operating and start exploring and using and, eventually promoting, hopefully, these new alternative ways of doing things that are just tons more efficient, right? Like blockchain, right? Tons more time efficient, cost efficient to make exchanges through the Bitcoin network versus, a traditional credit card network, for example, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. That's why we're here, because that's what we think about Bitcoin. It's this new thing, and there's so many benefits to it. And yeah, we're here to tell people about it, and we hope it can just keep getting better. So absolutely. And we hope the same can happen for HayekGold. Just really hope that people find uses for it and start, innovating and making stuff happen.
Appreciate that very much.
Join the club, join the club, join the Bitcoin Talk Club.
A new forum sensation is coming to a computer near you. A site that adapts to its users and tailors to altcoins. Are you a coin developer looking for a home? Look no further than the club. Have your own section and moderate it yourself. They're looking for members to help build the club into a one-stop resource for everyone's needs. They're looking for you at bitcointalk.club.
Join the club, join the club, join the Bitcoin Talk Club.
I'm going to jump into an interesting question that we like to do with all of our guests. We just ask for some kind of personal story in the crypto space, and pretty much anything goes here. If you saw something that could change the world firsthand, if you got to meet somebody awesome. We do get several scam stories, which, like you said, that's in the crypto space, that's pretty common. So I don't know, any kind of cool, funny, bad story that you'd like to share from your time in the crypto space?
Yeah, sure. Just also back up a step too. And I don't want to sound like I'm nay-naying on all these, different people in the crypto space. I think a lot of it's just the reality of a brand new industry. It's attracting a ton of money.
Oh yeah.
There's still a very little understanding, generally speaking, in the general population. And those combinations in general, it doesn't matter what it is that's associated with it. It just attracts tons of scams, and it's just those ingredients, right?
Absolutely.
So anyway, so just to kind of take a step back there in fairness to the industry, because obviously there's tons of awesome players out there, as you all know. So, as we know too, we're constant talks with, really great best practices players out there. So, there are a lot of great people, but I think one of my favorites I've heard so far is actually very recently last week in New York It was, a friend that is working with UNICEF and Bank of England, actually, of all parties, to help identify children that are basically, stateless by default of not having like a birth certificate. So it's like you get 6-year-olds or 8-year-olds in like a brothel, basically, in some, developing world, and like, she's not 18, like, prove it, you know what I mean? Or 16 or whatever. The consent ages, so it's like, basically it's like giving someone a private identity or a non-national way to identify themselves, but have their, be able to be some kind of identifier, at least that to me, it really struck me really, really deeply. And that's really, what drives us with Anthem Vault and, really with the Hayek, because it's, for me, my favorite use cases are in the developing world, because now there's enough over the top bandwidth that exists in these countries, and smartphone prices have come down enough where, they can access the internet through like a Chrome, browser on their Android phone, for example, and, basically have spendable, gold that they already trust gold, and they can, spend it through Bitcoin, blockchain, through a counterparty, right? It's just traveling, right? They can pay people, and, we can integrate it really easily. And it's very exciting because like all of a sudden they've got more spendable value in a vault that's sitting in value at Federal Reserve, and these massive organizations have value and cash and coin value and metals value as well, and be able to actually even have more util or usefulness with that value, arguably, right? Because it'll be instantly spendable if they want. So that to me is very exciting. Obviously there's more work to be done, a lot more work to be done, but we have an incredible team. We really do. Obviously the company bears my name, but it really is the team that's gotten it this far. And we really have awesome people. So very accomplished. We're working with, very big players. We're always aiming to work with the best. We want to bring as much legitimacy to, Bitcoin and to crypto as possible, as quickly as possible, because I've seen what happens, if the industry doesn't do that. I don't want to see, Bitcoin, it'll never go the way of the digital gold currencies 1.0, because ultimately it is decentralized, which, is a saving grace, in my opinion, like you all correctly point out. I think, but at the same time, I think what's really important is that, we really nurture the Bitcoin ecosystem. And, in order to do that, and one of the issues with Bitcoin that we solve with adding gold is that there's just a lack of liquidity. It's about $40 million worth roughly exchanged through the network a day. Now, as Bitcoin becomes more valuable, as it becomes, more widely dispersed, those economics, I think, will change over time. But, at the same time, no one has a crystal ball knowing how long that will take, potentially take, right? Or if it does take, right? If it even gets to that point, potentially. But assuming it does, but gold trades roughly $90 billion a day. So that's spot all the way through derivatives. So the Forex markets trade about, 5.5 trillion a day. So gold still maintains its neutrality internationally as a non-national item, right? Asset. It's not fiat currency, right? But at the same time, it has at least liquidity. It has, about almost 2,000 times the liquidity of Bitcoin on a daily basis. So see, Bitcoin, that problem means that's the reason why major, Fortune 1000 companies, Russell 2000 companies or 3000 companies can't adopt this into their treasury. They can't have a portion of their treasury for trade account really practically be in Bitcoin because the volumes are too tiny. But gold, they can. So it's much more liquid, in all of their bank treasury platforms that they have. Gold is an option, just like euro is an option if they want to hedge, right? So if they want to, be able to hold some of their earnings in another form, right? So like they can actually, but not be exposed necessarily as much to the price of gold in whatever their reporting currency is, let's say. So, I mean, there are already like instant ways that they can do that. And, we're working on, developing ways that people can do that even, without having that kind of sophistication. But, that's, all in due course here. So it's a lot of, there's so much innovation. There is such, there's been such a lack of innovation for hundreds of years, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And banking and really, banking is not really even that. It's that, banking there has in some ways in terms of like types of banks, but in terms of the hierarchical clearing structure, limited, where you still not enough to be able to be rid of systemic risk of, if a, somewhat important node goes down, then takes the whole system down with it. Or the infamous too big to fail. So, I mean, that's the problem, and we see it yet again, right, with the last big credit contraction and crisis that occurred, 7-8 years ago, and it's basically nothing changed except the problem got bigger, basically, and that's the issue. That's really the core failure of pyramid hierarchical structures. So. And that's why we're so embracive and we're so voraciously coding and building on the Bitcoin and decentralization. So
yeah, I remember a week or two ago I was writing an article about, I was reviewing a place where you can buy Bitcoin with cash, and I remember just saying, well, when you go to the bank to deposit your cash to buy Bitcoin, really the cash deposit system hasn't changed in decades. It's because it really hasn't. There's been no innovation there. And also even when the internet's here, everything's been innovated by the internet, and yet the banking system, you still have to wait like 2 or 3 days for an ACH transfer to go through, which is a huge pain in the butt. So yeah, absolutely. Innovation is huge. It's great. So
yeah, it is. And I mean, there's so many things that you can layer in with technology that, again, it's like, even things like confirmation speeds, and there's other things that you can do to help even like narrow those gaps just by getting creative, and just by having enough time and enough data basically to enable enough to get algorithmed out, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. So it's just really having focus. It's being able to have an intelligent focus in terms of building, because the other most difficult thing I think about this industry is that there's too much to do. There's too many possibilities. So, which is a problem because we have a finite amount of time in a day, obviously. So,
right.
That's where the challenge really gets in, and that's where I think really the experience really starts to shine. And our team has got over a decade's worth of experience in the payable gold space, successfully operationally with number one digital gold payment company in the world, building, having that experience and understanding what it takes, but now being able to have, the open platform and, just, military grade security strength of the blockchain, it's just, it really is awesome. It's a blessing. It's a blessing. It's a blessing for mankind because, frankly, there really wasn't a good answer to like how would the financial system transform itself, because it certainly wasn't going to go quietly. Like who would, that never happens, and understandably, but at the same time, it's like there's obviously mass recognition in the financial services industry of the very small circles that, I think, some of the players are probably still in some denial, but seeing some of the projects, and I don't want to get too much into that, but, I think that the Pandora's box has been opened, because even with the most nuclear of options from a regulatory standpoint of like a complete hands-off kind of, dictate that were to come down for whatever mad reason, that, even in that kind of crazy, horrible, megalomaniac worst case scenario, case that, it would create such a huge black market demand because of the sheer fact that, it could still run, basically. Like it
Right.
could mask itself enough to still function and not have any centralization. So, but I'm actually much more positive, and it's really about, government's really positive take to Bitcoin, specifically the U.S. government's. And, I think that, reading books like Jim Rickards' Currency Wars, that I think is very illuminating and very insightful, because, you obviously we know now that, the Department of Defense has war gamed out financial war games ad nauseum, and I'm sure continue to do so as the landscape continues to tweak and, evolve or devolve. So, they know. So, and anyone that's, a student of history knows that history is replete with hyperinflation and national currencies, going to zero, sometimes taking hundreds of years, but going to zero eventually.
Yep.
But, that's really where I think, understanding that and being able to say, well, no one really wants that scenario. So, and that's where everything is going. So even though we might not like the fact that we can't control this completely, at least we like the fact that it is at least visible. It is traceable. So that makes it better than cash, at least, for, looking in and, and going in and, subpoenaing, doing police work, doing detective work. There is a trail to follow. It can be difficult at times, right? But you can follow it. So, and it's ultimately, I think, a national security interest. I think that, what happens if, there is an indefinite bank holiday? Like, how do we function in a modern world without being able to make digital payments? And if the only game in town is bank payments and that system is centralized, and if it were to get compromised for whatever reason, either maliciously through like a sovereign state, through a bank run, systemic risk, some
absolutely.
combination of the two potentially. Something else potentially. It's just like any. I personally have access to 5 different lines of internet within a 30-minute radius of where I live, like including offices, homes, mobile, the whole bit. Because we are a fintech company. We operate, we don't have a brick and mortar, we operate, online, so, we have, just an internet presence. And so it's like, okay, well, that's just for me, for work, 5 lines of redundancy, but yet, we only have bank payments and cash as the 2 forms of ways to pay. So, the problem is that cash does you no good, globally and digitally, right? Can't, feed it through your, laptop. So, but at the same time, it's bank payments are the only game in town. So if that system becomes compromised, credit risk and any of the reasons that we name, sovereign risk, that, ultimately, what do you do? How do people transact? The very basics and crux of, modern civilization, basically, it strikes it. So, that's where I think it's so mission critical that, we have to basically get, functioning alternative systems in place. Like 5 years ago, frankly, we're really far behind. And that's really, part of the impetus too. I feel, we need to do everything we can to encourage people. I was, really appreciative of, shows, like yours that, really go such a long way into, educating people about, these, crypto and Bitcoin and, these new alternative ways to do things, because it's ultimately a necessity. So, people just don't realize it yet.
Yeah, I mean, as many as we can get out there, because the same thing could be said even for the Hayek. It's not very likely, at least in my eyes, but we did have where it wasn't legal for gold to be held, so you need even more options than just that.
Well, I think just add on that too is that, jurisdiction risk is definitely very real. I personally am of the opinion that there's a lot lower hanging fruit, so to speak, than someone's property in the U.S. But, that like IRAs, I would say, or other potential, anything that technically was sanctioned by government or potentially deposits, there's a liability technically to the client. But even in that case, I agree. And that's really where, our approach is that, people really should have, value with, custodians in multiple jurisdictions. And so, that's really where, we are actively, searching out now, different partners to work with, but only ones that are going to be able to hold to our standards. And that's kind of the longer tail, because part of, our challenge is really, working with different vault operators who are really forward thinking in terms of, wanting to innovate, wanting to improve on the transparency that they have, and, allowing us to do that, because, that's what people want. That's what people, they want to know that the gold is really there. They want to know that we're not stealing it. They want to know it's safe. Everyone's been scammed, and, people don't want to be scammed any longer. And because the internet provides for transparency to really minimize that, I think, if done correctly. I just don't think it really has been done correctly before, but, we're working to do it correctly. We understand the problems, I would argue, on all sides of the equations, as well as understanding the clients and the users, better than anyone else in the world, literally. So, I feel very confident that, in the team that we've assembled, the shareholder investor base that we have, the people we're bringing on board, the Fortune 500 type companies that, we're now at the levels of, initial conversations with. It's tremendous. We're trying really hard not to get ahead of ourselves, but, we maintain a very vigorous schedule, and, it's important because it is a bit of a race. It is a bit of a race. So, we need to, work all as efficiently and expeditiously as possible, I think, because none of us really know, how stable or how much stability is, really, really there. I think a lot more than people realize is because our existing financial structure is the only game in town. So I think it can last quite a long time, but I don't think anyone really knows for sure, frankly. Even the most connected of connected, quote unquote, people really know, because largely it's a game of mass perception and confidence at this point. It's, I don't know. It's, I know that, you guys know this is second nature, but, I think it's just important to put into context, like, why is Bitcoin popular, and it's, I think it's people are sick of lack of transparency, and, control typically is where a lot of that emanates from. And, people basically having a lack of control or feeling controlled, and, there's no need for it anymore, because there's it's just so many levels more efficient, times more efficient to do things in a decentralized manner versus doing things in a hierarchical manner in the digital age, that allows information and, communication to be so inexpensive. Because ultimately the only way you really get to trust and value is really through communication. So, that's really the big game changer that's occurred. Really, internet is, an adoption of internet and apps thereof, that's the game change that, that's the cognitive dissonance that we're all going through. And that's the opportunity. This is an opportunity I think this is a multi-generational lifetime opportunity that's going on right now in financial services. That's how big, I think, what's going on now. And I think that, there's similar things going on in other industries like biotech, but it's certainly going on here. And it's awesome. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. I definitely encourage anyone that's, out there that's, interested tangentially in the space, kind of as a hobby, but, not sure about, could I actually do something in the crypto or Bitcoin or Hayek space as a, full-time position, to really encourage yourself to go in the direction of doing that as a full-time thing, because I just think there's so much opportunity here, and really, the more minds, the more creativity we can get into, and really solid people we can get into the industry, the better. So, if you're a good person, you're smart, you've got passion, even if you're not smart, you just have passion, you're dedicated, and you're trustworthy, then, I highly suggest you get into this business and this industry. So, so it's exciting times.
I gotta say I agree with that, because I'm not full time yet by any means, but I love it here. So that's all I have to say.
Excellent.
All right. Well, that's great. Thanks a lot for coming on and talking to us, Anthem. Can anyone get in contact with you, like your Twitter handle or website?
Please, Twitter. Twitter handle is the best way to reach me directly. So it's at Anthem Hayek, Anthem, my first name, Hayek, Hayek, my middle name. So that's the best way. Definitely social, Facebook, Twitter, the company, Anthem Vault. Anthem, again, taking the first name, VAULT, is the company, and that's the same URL.com, anthemvault.com. So, and for more old school traditional, you can call us up, 855-428-2858. So, 855-48-VAULT spells out kind of spiffy. So please contact us. We love communication. We love hearing from you. We love feedback. We love hearing your ideas. What would you like to see? What don't you like? What do you want to see improve? What was confusing? All of that is massively appreciated. So yeah, we'd love for you to try it out. You can go on to Anthem Vault. It's free, and check it out, and yeah, get yourself in line to get some Hayek. So buy yourself some gold at Anthem Vault, and then we'll go ahead and approve you to transfer over into some Hayek. So we're in live launch right now. So we do have Hayeks out in the Bitcoin space and on blockchain. It is somewhat of a limited release. We're doing a steady methodical rollout, which is something that I've always really instilled that we do. And in our dev team, we've got awesome CSO, Michael Nelson, awesome team in general, Josh Garrison, who's a technology officer, just really, really great team, great dev, and great, about a dozen other dev teams that they run. And so it's a lot of excitement. We really love the feedback. I really appreciate, you all having me on the show and covering the HayekGold. Long name, the Hayek is what we like to just call it. Little Hayek being the unit. So, getting inspired from Bitcoin there, obviously. So having our marriage of gold and Bitcoin with the HayekGold. So it's awesome to be able to talk about it with you guys and your audience. So much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sweet. No, we're so glad to have you. This was Anthem Hayek Blanchard, CEO of Anthem Vault, and one of the creators of HayekGold. This was a lot of fun. So glad to have you. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Likewise.
Thanks for listening to episode 76. All of the music in today's show was from John Stewart. Remember to check out this week's show notes at youmeandbtc.com and leave us a comment. Also remember to catch our live Bitcoin headline show next Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern. You can find that at youmeandbtc.com/live. And we'll see you next Thursday for another regular show.